Okay, my friends, another shocker du jour. Today, February 22nd, 2023, there might be a simple reason we haven't found life on Mars. Well, there is a very simple reason. Let me explain it to you. Listen to this. They admit it now. A new study carried out in Earth's oldest desert shows how current technology can't always spot the signatures of life on our own planet surface, let alone Mars. They have no clue what they're looking at because they're looking for microbes. They're looking for biology in cells. I'm seeing biology in body parts. Let me show you. Okay, we're going to go through this palette in a second, but let me just show you something real quick. This is in my shop here. I have this. This is a piece of a muscle, and that's the muscle portion. Here's where it locks into the tendon, then the tendon locks into like a gluey spot, and then there's the bone up here. I have another shot showing the bone. Hold on. Where is that? Here it is right here. This is where that bone is. So this was the muscle, this is the tendon, then it has glue, and it glues into the bone. Let me show you some anatomical pictures, and then we're going to go back through all the mud fossils, and then the pictures of Mars, and then what I say proves my claims and statements about mud fossils. They are real, and the creatures were absolutely enormous. All right, let me explain something to you. In mud fossils, what happened was there was a hot saltwater flood, and these tendinish areas, which are nothing but calcium carbonates, basically, they're tendons, and they are not anything like the muscle. The muscle eroded away and washed away and turned into actually red clay mud. A lot of it. Some of it actually preserved perfectly, exactly like muscle. It depended upon where it was in relation to pH, temperature, different acids and salts, which is pH, and then the transition metals are the biggie, because they go in and they create what's called nucleophilic substitution. So as the water, aqueous solutions they call it, the metal compounds, which are in these aqueous solutions, work their way through, and then they attach and they turn things. They could turn this to basalt. They could turn this to quartz. It depends on what it was and what the conditions were and how long it was submerged for and all of that stuff. What I want you to pay attention to, first of all, I want to point out one thing. This is the Hunter's line, this center spot right here. It's called the linea alba. I couldn't remember that the other day, but it's a separation where the blastula, when it's a ball, goes bloop, it inverts, and then it seals here, and then the cavity is your abdomen, and then the seal is this seal right here. Specifically in women mud fossils, and you see the vagina, it splits right on that line. You can see that line, whole split comes up. I suppose I should show you one. I'll show you one anyway. But what I want you to see here is the different types of the way the tendons lock in. You really can't probably see it too well. But you see this one here? You see that plate like? There's different areas where they lock in different ways. I mean, it's really it's just unbelievable, the human body. I study this in as far of detail as you can get to, and it just amazes me every day because I find out something new every day. It's quite a piece of machinery. All right, I just showed you muscle, and I showed you the tendons and the connective tissues all weaved in together, and then how they lock in certain places. And this is what muscle locked into a tendon, locked into a bone. And the bone, I will show you in a different picture right here. That's where the bone was. I only showed that other picture up to about here somewhere. But the bone has one of those gluey spots, and then a little tendon, and then the muscle, which the muscles break off pretty easy. These are bundles of muscle. And that is from a rock that is on my property, or well, it's in my shop now. But that's the you have to have a lot of blood to service muscle. Tendons, you don't need much blood. See how it's brown here? It doesn't have much blood in it. It's mostly connective tissue. This has a lot of gooey stuff in it, which is blood. Blood is required to make that gooey stuff do their gooiness. And they break off out here because they're almost into all red muscle by this point. Here it's still got a lot of connective tissue. Okay, this is a stomach, and this is Vermilion Cliffs. And that guy is walking on a stomach. And Vermilion Cliffs has a, it's very, very saturated with these kind of crazy looking things. There's another spot, look at that. There's just blood coming out of here. All the blood up here. And these are very, very, very large. There's one here that will blow your mind. Look at this one. There's a guy standing up there. That is all biological tissue. Now, it's hard for the human mind to accept this or even to think about it. Now, this is on Earth. What I just showed you is on Earth, and so is this. These are literally the breasts of a gigantic woman. You see this? I show you anatomy. You want to see some anatomy? I'm going to show you some anatomy right now. Hold on, I got to find the anatomy, and here it is. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And the other one is only eroded just the top, like I say, the real red fleshy stuff just under the skin. That erodes down, but then you get into the connective tissue. It's a whole different issue. You see, this is where you got a lot of connective tissue running up, but it's got all the same body parts. I know it's crazy. I know it's absolutely insane. I do not disagree with that. Look at this. Remember I showed you some places where they just folded right in? It depends. Look at the person's walking through there. I can't remember what it is. Somebody will shout it out, I'm sure, in the comments. Now, what did I show you? All of this stuff at the bottom. Boom, 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 boom. Yes. The guy walking on the stomach, the muscles. This is what mud fossils are all about, which is nothing more than the body's creature decaying, only it's decaying when we had a hot water flood. Mud and mudstone is basically clay. When you get down to 100% clay, that's it. It's just mud, and it's just nothing more than flesh that it's eroded away. Then it starts going up towards the limestone area, which is calcium carbonate, CaCO3. All right, down here you got hematite. Then up here you start to get into your magnetite, and then you get up into the little chunky bits and pieces of what they call marl and marl stone. That's basically body parts inside, the internal body parts, this kind of things. These kind of things that are in the muds and all broken up into little bits and pieces. They call that marl, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. And then you get up to your limestone, which is almost completely 100% CaCO3. That's the difference. So you start at the mud, which is very erosive, and then by the time you get to your limestone, which is limestone, basalt, they can call it all of that same stuff, but limestone is the white looking stuff primarily, and it has a little different chemistry. Oh boy. Here, I'm just going to explain this real briefly. This is mudstone, which is nothing more than clay, which is the eroded flesh. And that's the stuff that comes off. And then it gets more and more stony and marly until you get up to limestone, which is CaCO3, which is, there's almost no blood in it whatsoever. It has none of the mud characteristics. So that's the hierarchy of clay is completely eroded away, little bits and pieces of your skin, really, basically, and down into your interstitium layer, and then below that you start to get into your connective tissues, and all that stuff starts to build up until you get almost completely limestone. So that's how that works. This is nothing more than muscle. It's a mountain, but it's nothing more than muscle. That's the connective tissues. The red blood is running off here because this is where you had primarily connective tissue. Then it starts to get into the muscle out here. Okay, my friends, here it is right here. This is the blood. This services the muscle tissue. I showed you this before. This is a rock that's in my shop. This is where the muscle breaks off. It starts to turn into real muscle from the connective tissue. But you can see how much red blood is involved in this muscle. This is tendon. There's almost no red blood in there at all. Now, if this had its original blood vessels, you'd see all these little legs coming out of it. You can see some are still, the little bumps are still in there, but the little tubes going down to them to feed them are gone. But normally there'd be a whole batch of little tubes coming out of there to feed down into these little blood vessels that run behind the scene here. You can't see them. Now, what's in here is called sarcomeres. Sarcomeres make the muscles pull like this. That's what they do. Now, let's take a look at the anatomical and what's up on Mars. Don't forget, this would have like little legs coming out of it. And you might think it's even a crab. Who knows? You see that, my friends? That's on Mars. That's the Mars crab. This was found in 2014. And it's the artery, which has all the little blood vessels that feed all of these different muscle tissues. And then the vein, which brings the blood back. So this comes down and pushes blood in to all of these muscles. After the end, it gets to the end, and it uses up all its oxygen and stuff. It comes back up this tube, which is the vein. Now, what is it servicing? Well, it's servicing what they call sarcomeres. Now, this is where it really is right here. All right, and it's servicing these tissues. What are these tissues? What's these little blocky looking things? All these little stripes going down and these slots in between them. Look, all these cuts and all these little, that's kind of crazy looking. And this is right in the middle of it, pumping blood into it, if I'm correct. And what do muscles need? They need a lot of blood. And what does a muscle look like if you wanted to really take a look at it and see what sarcomeres look like? They look exactly identical to that. And what has run out of these little slots is this red bloody stuff that is what pulls the muscles, the connective tissues together. Let's take a look at that. Okay, these are muscles. Striated muscle. This is, a picture of this is closer up. And now you can see they're in these blocky things. And what do these blocky things really look like? They look like this when you get right down on top of them. Now, let's see what they look like a little more anatomically seen here. Hold on, here it is right here. This is what happens with sarcomeres. And that's why they erode like this. And then the red bloody stuff runs out, and all you see is those little lines up on Mars. They ran out of here, and they run out in between too. When they pull together, you have a line in between. They pull together. These are stretched out, just sort of relaxed, and these are pulled together. And each one of them pulls together. Then the white goes in with the red. Well, the red is a run away, just run out into that dusty-looking red planet. It would be clay here on Earth because you have enough water to turn it into mud and clay. Up there, it's much drier. So the point being is the erosion takes place in between these layers, and then you end up with all those little stripes, which are the connective tissue, and there's just no way to deny that that's what's going on there. All right? This is where the blood is. That's where the blood's coming on. Feeding muscles. Muscles require enormous amounts of blood. And these are the sarcomeres. There's no reason these things be cut up like this in all these little slabs. Just give it some thought. Don't discount everything right out of hand. And that's what's been done. And I've been talking about this now since this mission in 2014. I saw this, and then I saw, where do you see the rest of the stuff? It's not just this. This right here is what they call interstitium. I found these in my mud fossils, and I thought, wow, what is all these little balls and these straps? And some of them are stretched, real stretched, and some of them are all gathered together. So what the hell is going on there? Well, up on Mars, this is the surface of Mars. This is huge. You got the same thing, all these balls, some stretched, and some of them all gathered up. This is skin. That's exactly the way skin works. Normally it's like this. Can you see all that up there? Hold on. Normally it's like that, relaxed. Well, this is pinched together, and this is stretched out. And that's what your skin's supposed to do, and it always comes back to being like this. And this up on Mars, it's like sandblast. Did you see it? Here you wouldn't have this. You'd have mud and so forth. The balls are very, 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 very tough, and they are huge on Earth as well as on Mars. Okay, you saw those balls. Where was I? Hold on. Here we are. I showed you this. Okay, so now let's see what interstitium looks like, because that's what it is, interstitium. Whoops. I closed that one out, but that's okay. We've already seen it. Where is the interstitium? There it is, right there. And they just discovered this just recently. In 2018, they made a big thing about it, but they found a new organ system. Okay, a little interruption there. Here we got all of those balls, and they're locked in. Then they have these little springy things to open up the bags here. The bags are fluid-filled highways. Then you have a real floppy collagen that just erodes right away. So you got like straps, you got balls, and then you got a real floppy stuff in between. And then you got mucosa at the top, or skin, or the coating of an organ, or whatever it is. It's a membrane. And here's what they look like when you look at them. Well, here's the whole thing right here. This is it. And here's what it looks like in the United Kingdom on Huntington's Beach. Here's all the balls that have eroded out of that wall. Here's all that red stuff that's just gooey and floppy. The balls are still pretty tough, and they don't erode away. But here's the mud. Like I say, the mud erodes away, the balls don't, and the straps do, especially in salty waters. And then you have the skin over the top. And this is the balls here, which we call Moki marbles here on Earth. Up on Mars, they call them the Mars blueberries. And here's what they look like in the human body. That's how tiny they are. This is them right here. And this is a little closer up right there. We're talking creatures that just nobody could ever even begin to think of that they're this size. And here's the Moki well, same as the Moki marbles, but they're up there. They're the Mars blueberries. They eroded a little bit different, and they don't take on the same, without being in the water, there's a different look to them. That's why they're real blueberries. Of course, on Earth, they're pretty blue on Earth, too. But anyway, you've seen now the sizes of these things, and you've seen that these are biological. And this is body tissue right here. This is nothing more than muscle fibers in a big bundle. Or they could be tendon, but it's hard to say. Probably tendon, because there's not much blood. You see, there's only one little patch of blood coming down here, so these are probably tendons. And I've seen tendons are absolutely unbelievably huge, because the creatures were unbelievably huge. So what have we shown? I've shown that this is complete nonsense. Millions of years in one picture. This is the guy's skin. These are all the layers of membranes. And that's a connective tissue there to give you a little strength in there. As it comes down, I think this right down here is the interstitium layer, where it has the balls in it that are like your immune area. And then below there you have some basement layers. And all of this stuff is designed to keep you separated from the rest of the world. Now, this is the tendon material. It's extremely strong connective tissue. This looks like it's starting to get into the muscle-ish area and going down. Now, why would this one little strip stay up and all the rest is gone? Well, I can show you exactly why, I think. It's because it's exactly the same as my specimen here. And what stayed is this piece right here, which is a tendon. It has all the same stripes in it and everything. But it's just tough as hell. Way tougher than this. And the rest can just erode away and fall away. But that tendon, I think, is what stayed. That's my interpretation of why you see that one thing just sticking up in the middle and nothing else. I think this was where the tendon attachment was. And there's no real muscle here. It's almost all tendon. You see this big, that's just very, very strong tendon. You have to have some little flexibility in it, and this is what gives you the flexibility. That's what I'm thinking anyway. I could be wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong about any of the rest of the stuff. And that's why we have never found biology on Mars, because we just can't open our eyes big enough. Okay, this I just got tipped off by a friend, Dinah Smith, and she sent me this about the earthquake in Turkey. And this guy Dutch, Dushkine channel, does a lot of things about earthquakes. And she said I should get a hold of him, and I'm trying to. Because I know what caused this earthquake. This is sarcomeres, the things I just showed you. Now watch, let me show you. You see how they're blocky here? Now watch this. You see that? That's an artery. That's an artery coming out of there. These are all muscle sarcomeres, and they're all these blocky. You see them blocky, all, and I can see them all over the place. I've been looking at this video. Now I'm going to do another one about this because they should understand what they're up against here. This is not, what happened was this muscle fiber just snapped, and they heard it go bap, 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 and all of these blocks snapped apart from each other, like the muscle relaxed or tightened up or something. It's right in that area. Those things changed, and that's what all these blocks are. And every now and then you're going to see red and black, which is the vein and the artery. And like there's some artery blood right there. This was one big flat plane at one time, and it just collapsed. Well, it's spread. The muscle snapped. Basically, that's what happened. The muscle snapped. And all of these little blocks now are all over the place. Sarcomeres.